With the arrival of the Celtic tribes around the year 700 BC, the first signs of a somewhat organized religion began to appear in England. We are talking, of course, about Druidism. The Druids were in charge of the spiritual aspects of the Celtic culture. They met once a year in forest groups or places closely related to nature and held these ceremonies, which often include human sacrifices. Druids meant a great deal to the Celts and played a significant role in their society. Moving forward to the year 40 AD, with the Roman conquest of the southern half of England, the Celtic tribes were forced to move to what is now known as Wales, Ireland, and Scotland. The Romans were considered highly religious people, as is clearly seen by the pantheon of gods and goddesses. Later on, they adopted Christianity, but this religious belief had already reached Britain long before the Romans. Even the Celts left Druidism behind to adopt Christianity. These would mean conflict many years later, as the Celtic Christian Church posed as a threat to the Roman Christian Church. This conflict would end with the Roman Christian Church ruling over the Celtic Christian Church. From this point onward, the Church played an even more important role than the one it had already been occupying, as it was one of the most important keys for noblemen, kings and queens to legitimize their right to rule. In exchange of lands, money, and authority, the Church proclaimed kings and queens as God chosen, meaning that going against the king or his word meant going against God himself. Of course, as the Church involved politics, this could only mean troubles of all sorts, from political rivalries to mass persecution of other dissident religions. In fact, the head of the Roman Christian Church called for the Christian kingdoms and their people to take the Holy Land from the Muslims around the 1100, leading to the First Crusade. By the 1500s, King Henry VIII took the decision of breaking with Rome and the Church, as he considered that the Church held too many power and riches that, of course, he wanted for himself. This led to the creation of the Church of England, and although Henry VIII did not agree with the Protestant ideals introduced by Martin Luther, England became a politically Protestant country, even if the most popular religion in the country was still Catholicism. Thus, the Protestant-Catholic struggle began, endangering the kingdom, as it gave the chance for Catholic claimants to the English throne to make their move. This meant a change in the popularity of Catholics, as they began to be seen as threat for the kingdom. 100 years later, another religious disagreement rises in England, this time involving Puritans, Catholics, and Protestants. The anti-Catholic feeling was at its highest point. This led to an open civil war which left many dead civilians and, most importantly, a Republican Britain. After the war, with a Britain now ruled by a constitutional monarchy, where Parliament held enough power to oppose the king, a constitutional act was passed to prevent England from having a Catholic king. Jumping forward to the 1800s, after the Industrial Revolution, various other religious groups appeared in England, as is the case of Quakers and Methodists, which were a nuisance to the Anglican Church. From this point onward, the Church played a secondary role, and although it still held power, it was nothing compared to its former glory in the Middle Ages.